Hello Spartans, this is my second video of my mini-series on acing the interview process. Today I'm going to help you prepare your CV so you can strike a good first impression and stand out from the competition. I will start with 10 common mistakes that people make, and then I will describe the ideal CV. Let's begin. Let's start with mistake number 1. Not updating your CV. Wait, before you say, well, duh, of course I need to update my CV. I need to add my new roles and skills. That is not what I meant. Understand that your CV tells a story, and when you start, your first and probably only page has your education as the most important section. As you progress, you expand your skills and work experience, so the education section needs to be moved because it's no longer relevant. The same happens with your professional summary, which reflects a snapshot of you in time. At the beginning of your career, you are an aspiring cybersecurity professional. But after 10 years, you are a cybersecurity manager, leader, or influencer. Updating your CV also implies something else, which I call the sliding window of verbosity. And what I mean by this is that over time, all the roles, projects, and skills should be summarized or removed altogether, because they may no longer fit your archetype. If you are a reverse engineer, there is no point in describing the tools and roles related to your pen testing times with the same degree of detail and enthusiasm as you did back when it was your area of expertise. Mistake number 2, long-winded. HR departments and hiring managers have to go through hundreds, if not thousands of CVs for a given role. If your CV is long and dense, and the relevant information is buried in verbose wording, your CV will be passed over. As an applicant, future cybersecurity professional, or even a functional human being, being succinct is one of the most important skills that you can develop. This applies to both written and spoken communication. The bottom line here is, start with a standard CV structure, fill in the basic details, and for the rest, focus on what matters. This will become clear as we progress in this video, but especially at the end, when I describe the ideal structure for a CV. Mistake number 3, not tailored. Let's imagine that you are applying for a position as a junior cloud security engineer. However, you have been a reverse engineer at your previous job. You fill your CV with a bunch of details about reverse engineering, such as tooling, specific practices, and even your professional summary is all about reverse engineering and malware analysis. This is a big mistake. It's not okay to lie on your CV, but it's okay to embellish it. You want people to perceive you as someone that used to be a reverse engineering, but it is now pivoting to cloud security. As such, you should downplay your previous experience in terms of verbosity and space occupied in the CV, and emphasize your experiences with cloud security, such as certification, skills, tools, and even research shared on your personal blog and website. Your professional summary should also reflect exactly this, that you used to be a reverse engineer, but over time you have developed cloud security skills and now you want to pivot to cloud security. The point is to frame your skills as an asset for the company and the role at hand. If the role is in the same area but it is more specific and with a different stack, as an example, an identity and access management expert on AWS, you should highlight your experience with IAM on the cloud provider you are currently working with. As an example, Azure. Of course, this assumes that you have had some sort of experience that relates somehow to the new role. Tailoring also applies to soft skills. If you are pivoting to a managerial role, you should highlight instances where your soft skills stood out. By changing your CV, you are changing the perception that people have of you, and that always plays out in your favor. Mistake number 4, not impact-oriented. Imagine that you are hiring a company to build your kitchen and you have 2 CVs. CV A talks about all the materials, suppliers, and cutting-edge techniques that they use to build your kitchen. CV B talks about all of these, but to a much lesser extent with much less verbosity, but makes bold statements such as, one of our kitchens was featured in several home decor magazines due to its innovative design, and 50% less time to build and install your kitchen due to a proprietary process that outperforms the competition. Which one would you choose? You are telling me that my kitchen is going to be finished in a few weeks instead of months, and it may be featured in Vogue.
Shut up and take my money!
The reason why you choose CVB over CVA is that CVB focuses on results rather than boring facts. Your CV should resemble CVB. Facts are okay as long as you balance them with specific results. As an example, let's look at 3 different lines on a CV. Example number 1 is responsible for handling security alerts. Statement B is responsible for handling security incidents and writing comprehensive compromise reports. to answer questions such as how did it happen and how can the customer remediate the situation. And finally, we have the third statement, which is proposed and implemented a new security alert handling process that reduced the time to close by 50% and increased overall satisfaction at the workplace by 35%. Statement A is quite simple and bland. The second is more comprehensive and you start seeing the impact that I was talking about. However, it's not as results-oriented as statement C. The great thing about statement C is that you have percentages. And as a hiring manager or someone from human resources, something that is quantifiable is much better than something that is vague. Always bear this in mind. Mistake number 5, poor formatting and grammatical errors. A CV that is cluttered and has too much white space, contains grammatical mistakes, is inconsistent with different types of bullet points, paragraphs, and styles, and has incoherent sentences, will be simply passed over by someone that is having a bad day. I remember catching really poor CVs. But because I didn't want to lose candidates that were sloppy with their CVs, I worked through them with patience. However, I know that I'm one of the few exceptions. Regardless, I still remember one CV that had so many incoherent sentences and grammatical mistakes that I was really forced to drop it just to preserve my sanity. Most hiring managers and people from human resources will simply pass over your CV and move on to the next candidate. Bottom line, don't overlook the appearance of your CV. Mistake number 6, 404 soft skills not found. Whether you choose to dedicate a section to soft skills, it's up to you. What I usually recommend is that you mention these soft skills somewhere in the section where you talk about your previous and current roles. A section with buzzwords such as go-getter, goal-oriented, problem solver, and team player looks really good. But you know what looks even better? Giving clear examples of situations where you display these skills. As an example, you could write something like this. Assembled a cross-functional team consisting of DevOps, analytics, and security to work on a project to scale our log management and alerting capabilities, which allowed us to scope incidents 50% faster. With this paragraph, you could display all of the soft skills I mentioned before in a much more impactful way. At the beginning of your career, meaning within the first 1 to 3 years, your soft skills are not of major importance. But as you become more senior and experienced, these are no longer optional. You need to work on these skills and then show them in a way that is measurable and impactful. Mistake number 7, a criminal offense, exaggerating. You wrote a hello world in Golang. Can you add Golang to your list of skills? No. You scanned your internal network with Nmap. Can you call yourself a pen tester? No. You were hired as a cloud security engineer and were tasked with building a team. You ended up leading it because you were the first one, but your official role is senior cloud security engineer. Can you say that you were leading a team? Absolutely. Do it! There is a big difference between lying and embellishing. Lying implies that you are selling yourself as an expert on a tool or area that you have had little to no exposure to. Embellishing is about reframing your experience in a way that it's truthful but slightly emphasized. I always recommend my clients to embellish their CVs to the extent that they can back up their claims with tangible experience. If you have experience leading teams because your manager left you to your own devices and you had to take responsibility, you can emphasize your leadership skills when applying for a leadership position, such as a SecOps manager. The worst that can happen to you when you are exaggerating or lying is that you may be caught. This will really ruin your chances, because if they catch you in a lie, they will wonder, what else are you lying about? Mistake number 8, job hopping. While job hopping is not really a CV problem, it will show on your CV. At the beginning of your career, job hopping is expected because you are still young and reckless. You drop jobs faster because you haven't built the resilience to deal with adversity. If you are living with your parents or you are supported by them, you are more likely to feel that your actions are inconsequential, and you always have a fallback plan. However, over time, you start staying longer at jobs and dealing with issues head-on. Still, there are a few of us that choose to job hop every couple of months or years. And over time, this becomes a major red flag for recruiters. While I can't stop you from job hopping, if you do, I highly recommend that you add some sort of justification for the hops, say within each role section. The justification should not blame the company or your colleagues at every turn. Remember, if every company or job you join sucks, either you are really unlucky or you are the one to blame. Mistake number 9, adding a picture. I wasn't sure if I should dedicate a section to this tip or not, but I feel that it is necessary. Understand this, your goal with your CV is to get the foot on the door, so that you can display your, hopefully, awesome personality. As I mentioned before, companies hire you, not your skills. This means that you must, at all costs, avoid potentially biased decisions, which can happen when you write or add something to your CV that makes it subjective. Your mom may think that you are a handsome young man, but the hiring manager or the HR representative may disagree with your haircut choice. Remember, people reject first and find reasons later. Don't give them a reason. If you are not as good looking as me, just skip the picture. Mistake number 10, adding unnecessary information. You are a professional bachata dancer. Perhaps you like to fish, or maybe you like to play the ukulele. The thing is, no one cares. I mean, seriously, no one cares, especially the hiring manager. A section with hobbies that have nothing to do with the role or field is extra space occupied that would be better off left blank. You are making the trees working overtime for nothing. Another one is adding jobs that are completely unrelated to the role you are applying for. Your part-time job as a barista at Starbucks has little to no transferable knowledge when you are applying for a junior SecOps position. Also, if the skill is slightly related but extremely basic, just skip it. It's great that you can use Word and Windows, but doesn't everyone else? Finally, and re-emphasizing mistake number 1, if your skill is obsolete or no longer applicable, remove it from the CV. Also, reduce the sections that talk about jobs that don't really fit the requirements of the new role you are applying for. The more content you add, the more rope you have to hang yourself. I have talked about the 10 common mistakes that people make with their CVs. Now it is time to talk about the ideal structure for a CV. For each section of the CV, I'm going to describe the do's and the don'ts. Starting with the basic contact information. Here in this section, you are going to put stuff like full name, email address, phone number, link for your LinkedIn, link for your blog, personal website, GitHub account, or similar version control repository, and finally your location. The next section should be your professional summary. This is likely one of the most important sections of your CV, because this is your elevator pitch. The summary will change over time and based on the role that you are applying for, as you should frame your experience in a way that mirrors the expectations for the role. There is no hard structure, but you should start by summarizing all of your experience over the years. If you started as a pen tester and then became a reverse engineer, you should mention this. You should mention the areas that you have experience in. Then you can focus on the experience that is relevant for the position that you are applying for, such as well-known tools, processes, and standards. You can also add one of your biggest achievements while working at another role and company. Finally, end with a short sentence on why you are a good fit and why you want to take the role. Next, we have the skills section. And in this section, you should focus on the skills that you have at a high level and pick the ones that are well known within the industry. This section is all about buzzwords. I remember that my first CVs had several subsections with bullet points describing all the tools and programming languages that I knew. What I recommend these days is that you start by inventorying the tasks and areas of cybersecurity that you worked in, the tools that you have used, and the standards that you have followed. As an example, let's assume that you are a SOC analyst performing incident response. A summary of your skills would look something like this: incident response, forensics analysis, and NIST 800-61, which is a standard for incident response, SIEM tools, Splunk, forensics tools, Wireshark, volatility, and finally programming/scripting, Bash, and Python. You get the idea. You can present your skills in different ways on your CV. As an example, you can create a section before or after your work experience, or you can simply highlight the most important skills that you have on the left side of your CV within a small section. Also, some people like to go a bit further, and for each CV, they like to rate themselves as beginner, intermediate, and advanced. At the beginning of your career, a small section on the left side of your CV is totally fine. But as you progress, you should dedicate a section that is more detailed, and this section can go before or after your work experience. Also, I would avoid the grading because it's quite subjective and may actually work against you. Your interviewers will gauge your level based on the questions that they ask. And truth be told, interviews are way too short to assess your level of expertise on a tool or a skill. The next section is work experience. And this section is the most important one in your CV. When you are describing your roles, it is usually okay to describe the tasks, especially if you are going to repeat them in this new role. But you should always keep an impact-oriented mindset. You should always frame your tasks from the perspective of the impact that they had on your company or customers. Throw in some percentages if you can, as they help the reader quantify your impact. Another thing that you can add here is the tooling that you developed in each role. And if you follow my channel, that list is most likely quite big. The next section, education, is at the top of your CV or after your work experience, depending on how experienced you are. At the beginning of your career, this is likely the most important section of your CV. But as you become more experienced, it becomes less relevant. And for that reason, if at the beginning it shows at the top of your CV, later it should show after your work experience section. Keep this section simple. If you have a master's or a PhD or just a bachelor's in computer science or cybersecurity, just put a set of bullet points describing the major areas that you have studied that are relevant for cybersecurity in general or for the position you are applying for. As an example, encryption, cloud security, object-oriented programming, etc. As you reach the end of the CV, you have sections such as certifications. This one is self-explanatory. Projects and publications, and any additional sections. For projects and publications, you should share your side projects, significant research such as CVs, papers, and blog posts on well-known blogs. Bear in mind that the side project that you mentioned should be relevant and significant. A Python script that crawls the web is not really a significant or impactful project, and it's probably not relevant for the position that you are applying for. However, if you run a full-blown AWS infrastructure with all the security that it requires, this is definitely a project that should be in your CV. Blog posts on your own blog are not really relevant. But if you teamed up with another researcher to write a blog post on a well-known blog, such as the blog of an AV vendor, you should definitely mention it in this section. At the beginning of your career, you can get away with sharing less impactful stuff, but as you progress, you are expected to know better. Finally, we have additional sections, and here you can talk about language courses that you took, which hopefully are relevant to the position that you are applying for or in cybersecurity in general, or hobbies, but hobbies that are relevant to the position you are applying for, or at least in the realm of cybersecurity. And that is it, Spartans. In this video, I addressed common mistakes that cybersecurity applicants make and shared some tips to help you stand out. After all, landing your first interview is looking at what everyone else is doing and doing the opposite. Until next time, stay safe, stay paranoid.